Behind the glossy posts and picture-perfect life she showcased to millions, Jessica Monroe's world seemed like a dream. The glamorous influencer and her preacher husband were the embodiment of modern success, a marriage rooted in faith and celebrated online. But beneath the filters and hashtags lay a devastating secret, one so shocking it would unravel everything: betrayal, rage, and a murder that left a nation in disbelief. What happens when ambition and faith collide? When the fear of losing everything leads to choices that can never be undone? Jessica's story isn't just about a murder, it's about the crushing weight of deception and the explosive cost of unmet expectations. It's a tale that forces us to confront the darkest corners of love and trust. Before we uncover this gripping and tragic story, take a moment to like this video. Join us as we delve into the most harrowing tales of love, betrayal, and crime. Jessica Monroe wasn't just an influencer. She was a phenomenon. At 29, her followers adored her for the aspirational life she seemed to live effortlessly. Her content, meticulously curated, showcased everything from luxury vacations to heartfelt captions about love and faith. But the centerpiece of her online persona was her seemingly perfect marriage to Daniel Monroe, a preacher who exuded charisma and conviction. Daniel, 35, was a pillar of his Florida community, admired for his impassioned sermons and unwavering dedication to his congregation. He spoke of family and faith as cornerstones of a meaningful life, and Jessica embodied those ideals as his wife. Together, they seemed like the perfect team, a partnership that bridged modern glamour with timeless devotion. Their marriage had been nothing short of a spectacle. A lavish wedding streamed live to Jessica's millions of followers, complete with breathtaking vows and a tearful first dance. To Daniel, their union was a divine partnership, a beacon of love and inspiration for all to see. To Jessica, it was more than love. It was content. Every sweet moment, every affectionate glance became part of the brand she had carefully built. From the outside, they were untouchable. Their lives appeared seamless, a blend of old-fashioned values and modern success. But behind the scenes, the cracks in their seemingly unshakable foundation were beginning to form. Cracks that would soon shatter everything they had built. Jessica Monroe's pregnancy should have been a joyous milestone, a chapter in the fairy tale life she had crafted so meticulously. For Daniel, it was nothing less than a divine blessing, a confirmation of their sacred union and the family he had always envisioned. He spoke about the baby to his congregation with pride, weaving their growing family into his sermons as a testament to God's grace. He was overjoyed, already dreaming of being a father. But for Jessica, the reality was far different. She was terrified. Her influencer career had never been better. Lucrative brand deals were rolling in. Her follower count was skyrocketing, and major media outlets were beginning to take notice. She had worked tirelessly to get to this point, curating every moment of her life for public consumption. A pregnancy, with all its physical and emotional demands, would upend her carefully constructed world. The thought of losing her figure, her time, and her ability to meet her obligations filled her with dread. Jessica kept these fears to herself. She couldn't bear the thought of disappointing Daniel or tarnishing her image as the perfect wife. So, when Daniel gushed about the baby and began making plans, Jessica plastered on a smile and nodded along. All the while, a quiet plan began to form in her mind. The first step was finding a clinic that would perform the abortion discreetly. Jessica knew she couldn't go to a local provider, not with her social media presence and Daniel's high-profile position in the community. Instead, she arranged for a visit to a private clinic in Miami under the pretense of a collaboration with a luxury wellness brand. She booked a hotel room and planned the trip meticulously, ensuring it would coincide with one of Daniel's out-of-town ministry retreats. Jessica lied about her itinerary, telling Daniel she was attending a weekend influencer summit focused on faith and lifestyle branding. She crafted fake promotional materials to back up her story, even sending him photos from past events to make it believable. Daniel, trusting and proud of her professional success, had no reason to question her.
At the clinic, Jessica signed the consent forms with trembling hands, her heart heavy with guilt. The abortion was meant to be a clean solution, a way to preserve her career and keep her life on track. But something went wrong. Severe complications during the procedure caused irreparable damage to her uterus. The doctors delivered the devastating news: Jessica would need a hysterectomy to save her life. The surgery left her permanently unable to have children. Jessica's return home was a carefully rehearsed act. She greeted Daniel with the same radiant smile she wore for her followers, brushing off his questions about her trip with vague answers about networking and panels. The physical recovery from her surgery was grueling, but she masked it under the guise of exhaustion from travel. When Daniel asked about her health, she attributed her fatigue to the demands of her career. But the emotional toll was harder to conceal. Jessica's guilt ate away at her, a constant reminder of the secret she carried. Her social media posts remained flawless, but behind the scenes, she was struggling. Every time Daniel mentioned the baby or spoke of their future children, her chest tightened. She couldn't tell him the truth. Not about the abortion, not about the hysterectomy, and certainly not about the lies she had told to pull it off. Jessica buried herself in her work, using her career as a shield against her emotions. She convinced herself that as long as she maintained the facade, everything would be fine. But the weight of her deception created a chasm in their marriage, one that grew wider with every passing day. She had built her life on the idea of perfection, but the truth was far from perfect, and the cracks were starting to show. Daniel Monroe had always envisioned his life as a preacher as more than just sermons and congregational duties. It was a calling to lead by example, to show the world what a faithful, loving family could look like. With Jessica by his side, he believed they were building something extraordinary, a union blessed by God, destined to inspire others. But as months turned into years, one element of that vision remained unfulfilled: a family. Daniel's longing for children wasn't just personal, it was spiritual. He wove his dreams into his sermons, speaking passionately about the joys and responsibilities of parenthood. At home, he often spoke of their future children, imagining bedtime stories, family prayer sessions, and their little ones running around the pews on Sunday mornings. But Jessica's responses were always evasive. She'd smile, deflect with a joke, or offer vague assurances about waiting for the right time. At first, Daniel chalked it up to nerves or the pressure of her busy career. But as time went on, her reluctance began to feel deliberate. He noticed how she subtly changed the subject whenever the topic of children arose, or how she'd grow distant whenever he mentioned starting a family. The tension between them grew, unspoken, but ever present. Daniel's frustration festered. Though he tried to push it aside, he prayed for patience, for understanding, and for the strength to support Jessica through whatever fears or hesitations she might have. But his instincts told him there was more to her resistance than she was letting on. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late on a Wednesday, and Daniel was in his home office, organizing sermon notes and preparing for the upcoming Sunday service. Jessica had gone to bed early, claiming exhaustion from a long day of photo shoots and content planning. While searching for a binder on the bookshelf, Daniel noticed a stack of papers stuffed haphazardly into a leather portfolio. It was unlike Jessica to leave anything out of place. Her obsession with presentation extended even to their home. Curious, he pulled the papers out. At first, he thought it was nothing more than work-related contracts or promotional material. But then his eyes caught words that didn't belong: hysterectomy, post-abortion complications, and irreversible infertility.
The room seemed to tilt as Daniel's mind raced to make sense of what he was reading. His heart pounded as he flipped through the pages, scanning dates, procedures, and clinical notes that confirmed what he could hardly believe. Jessica had been pregnant and had chosen to terminate the pregnancy. Not only that, but the abortion had led to complications so severe that she could never have children. His hands trembled as the weight of the betrayal sank in. She had made a life-altering decision without him, without so much as a conversation. The woman he trusted, the woman he loved, had carried this secret while he dreamed of a future that could never exist. Daniel stormed into their bedroom, his fury barely contained. Jessica startled awake, sitting up, her confusion quickly replaced by dread as she saw the papers clutched in his hand. "What is this?" Daniel's voice was low and shaking, the calm before a storm. Jessica's face went pale. "Daniel, I can explain—" "Explain?" he interrupted, his voice rising. "You mean to tell me that this—" he waved the papers, "is something you forgot to mention? That you made this decision, our decision, without even talking to me?" Jessica stammered, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. She tried to explain the pressures she'd felt, the fear of losing her career, the desperation that had driven her to make the choice alone. But every word felt like an excuse to Daniel, a justification for a betrayal he couldn't comprehend. "You killed our child," he said, his voice cracking, "and you didn't even give me a say. And now there's no future for us, no family, no children, nothing." Tears streamed down Jessica's face as she tried to bridge the growing chasm between them. "I didn't want to hurt you," she pleaded. "I thought I could fix everything, that it wouldn't matter if—" "If what?" Daniel roared. "If I never found out? If you just kept lying to me for the rest of our lives?" Jessica reached for him, desperate to make him understand. But Daniel pulled away. His faith, his trust, the very foundation of their marriage, everything felt like a lie. He stared at her, his heartbreak consuming him. "I can't even look at you right now," he said, his voice heavy with finality before leaving the room. Jessica collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. For the first time, she realized that her perfect image, her carefully curated life, had begun to crumble, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Meanwhile, Daniel sat alone in his office, the paper still in his hand, as his world shattered around him. The days following the initial confrontation were heavy with silence and tension. Jessica and Daniel avoided each other as much as possible. Their home, once filled with curated perfection, now echoed with the weight of unspoken words. Daniel buried himself in his ministry, delivering sermons on forgiveness and truth that felt hypocritical even to him. Jessica tried to go on with her influencer duties, posting cheerful content that felt hollow and contrived. Behind the screens, their marriage was crumbling, the cracks growing deeper with each passing day. On the fateful night, Daniel returned home from an evening prayer meeting, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. He had spent hours counseling others, urging them to confront their struggles with faith and honesty. But he couldn't reconcile his own pain. Jessica was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, her face lit by the glow of the screen. The sight of her so calm and composed after everything that had happened reignited the storm inside him. "Are you just going to keep pretending like nothing happened?" Daniel's voice cut through the quiet. Jessica looked up, startled by the sharpness in his tone. "Daniel, I'm not pretending. I'm just trying to move forward." "Move forward?" he snapped, stepping closer. "How do we move forward from this? From the lies? From the betrayal? You killed our child, Jessica. You destroyed any chance of us having a family, and you think we can just move on?" Jessica's face hardened, her own frustration bubbling to the surface. I didn't destroy anything. I made a decision because I was scared. Scared of losing everything I worked for. Do you even understand the pressure I was under? Pressure? Daniel's voice rose. What about me? What about us? You didn't even give me a chance to be part of that decision. You made it all about you. Jessica stood her ground, postured defiant. Because it was about me, Daniel. It was my body, my career, my life. You've never understood what it's like to be in my position, to have the entire world watching, expecting perfection. That's the problem, Jessica, he shouted, his voice shaking with anger. You care more about your image than you ever cared about this marriage or this family. Her words were cutting, her tone bitter. And maybe you care more about your sermons than you ever cared about me. That accusation hit Daniel like a blow. His hands clenched into fists at his sides as the anger he'd been holding back surged forward. Don't you dare, he growled. Don't you dare act like this is my fault. You lied, Jessica. You lied about everything, and you're no saint. Daniel's face flushed, his pulse racing with fury. And in that moment, something inside him snapped. He reached for the brass candlestick that sat on the side table, a single motion that changed everything. Jessica saw it too late. Daniel, wait, she began, but it was already too late. In a blind fit of rage, he swung the candlestick, and the impact was sickening. The room fell silent